Hey, this is Justin with Wood-Mizer South in Newnan, Georgia. I work in customer service and sales. Today I'm going to be showing Triple L Rustic Design on how to use their new 40 wide sawmill. So it's got a 2-inch ball, 7-way plug, charges off your truck, right? And there's a little battery inside this hydraulic box in here where it's, it's running the brakes.
Okay.
You got your hookups and everything for your truck. This control box pins in right here. You gotta push it over and swing it back out and you get it off your truck. If you're gonna leave this on a property and you think, hey, somebody might steal this thing, you can take the hitch off right here. You got two 15/16 bolts, they'll just come right off.
Okay.
Right, so if I'm ever leaving it in an area I'm worried about it, that's what I do, is take that off. So you get your control box out like that. Your cat track wiring harness is all right here. All your electrical breakers now are located here. Like if you ever try to go up or down, check these breakers first, like if something's not working, Your battery's riding along with the saw head right here. So you got a 12-volt battery right here under the saw head, and you got a fuse box. So if it's not a trip breaker, start working on the fuses and checking your 12-volt. Everything's driven off 12-volt on this thing. That engine's turning an alternator, and that's how it's charging. So you can actually operate the whole mill without even running the engine. So a lot of it today, since we're filming, I'm gonna keep the engine and off and just kind of go through each step.
Okay.
So when we get in and out of travel position, I get that control box out of the way, right? I'm gonna take these fenders off. On a super mill, it's very important to do this as well because they could rub right here coming back, right? So you gotta get your saw head up after this. So I usually just set these aside in the shop or under the mill, out of the way. They just bungee in. They're real simple and they come right off. So just unclip them, put them under the mill or wherever you got a spot for them. All right, so it's important to kind of work opposite of the weight. So I always drop the front 3 legs, and depending on where you're setting it up, it could be an uneven surface. So you want to kind of level the feet out the best you can, or shim them, whatever you need to do. And then all that weight is back there right now. So I'm going to do all that right now on the front 3, but they're already down. But that's what you would do. You just drop your legs at this point. Then the saw head has to come up 26 inches or above to clear all these folded up hydraulics. You can't unfold the hydraulics until you reach a 6-foot strip over here on this side. And that battery's coming through here and it's powering up all your hydraulics in this box here, right? So basically before I come up over here, you see how the head is resting in a rest pin?
Yeah.
So that's one thing securing it going down the road. Another thing, when you're going down the road, we have it auto clutched up. The engine is raised because it rides on a 2-piece turnbuckle, so it can't separate. So the weight of the engine's on that as well. That's done on the control box. And then the third thing over here is you got a rest pin. I'm sorry, a safety chain. So I'm gonna unhook that safety chain. Now that saw head can travel, right? If you're on a bad hill and you're worried about all that weight transferring down this way, you could always lower this leg temporarily just to keep it from popping a wheelie on the other end. Don't ask me how I know that one. So I'm gonna raise that saw head up, but that's why I had to get them fenders off. I'm gonna raise that saw head up above 26 inches and I'm gonna bring all that weight up this way. Then I can get those legs down. So if you look at your control box, sorry, we're all over the place.
Oh, you're good.
So remember I said you can run everything on this sawmill in accessory, 12-volt, right? So I'm gonna turn it to accessory, it's just like a car or a truck. Turn it to 3 and you're just running off your 12 volts. Go to 1, your fuel pump kicks on, you're ready to crank the engine. So you'll notice you have your measurements here now. Means it's a remote AccuSet mill, so you got all your measurements here, so you don't have to look for that scale up there like you would on the 15. Yep, so up is up and down is down on this drum switch. So you got forward and reverse drum switch, up and down drum switch, kind of like your power feed on the 15 wide.
Okay.
But now you got up and down as well. So I'm gonna go up. You remember how high I said? 26 or above, yeah. So we're gonna come up to clear those hydraulics, and luckily I got my measurements here. So if I forgot to unhook that safety chain, it'll remind me when I start to come backwards. Say, hey, I'm here. I ain't going no further. So I'm gonna come here. So anything above 26, right? There's also a reference. Nobody hardly ever uses this, but you can click this button here and get in a reference, and you can store that. So when you get out there for the first time in the day, when you're gonna get home, you're gonna set up, you can go to that reference and hit up, and it'll automatically go to that 26 inches that I referenced. So it's kind of like a quick feature.
Yeah.
So now I came up, see, if I was on a bad hill, that head could go that way. That's why I dropped that back leg. Now I'm gonna come back, so because I unhooked the chain. So coming back, it comes back full speed, kind of like on the 15 with the power feed. So I'm gonna bring all that weight to the front now. Luckily today we're sawing on a concrete slab, so all that being said, we're gonna kind of level out pretty easy. So I came up, came back. Now I can get this rest pin where the saw head was resting on. I'm gonna get it down out of the way. What happens if you load a log up here and forgot to do this, you can break this pin right here. So I'm getting it out of the way, and then I wanna drop these 3 legs since all my weight's down there now. And if I had to put weight on them, or shims on them, I could, right? With this bar. So you got a bar that always rides here. I lost one of these in the past 10 years is because I didn't put it right there. I put it on the back of the truck and it ended up in Tennessee in Gatlinburg area. So you just put weight on it like that.
And then do you line them up all the same?
So it depends on your floor.
We're pretty flat, so I mean, pretty much the initial.
Just like it is in here, yeah. Some people like to get the wheels off the ground. I like to kind of leave the wheels on the ground myself, kind of give me some more rigidity to it. But that's up to the operator, you know. So what's really cool about these is how fast they set up. I mean, pretty much all we got to do at this point is lower the engine down, bring the sawdust chute down, and get the blade tension right. Is really almost ready to saw the wood and unfold the hydraulics. So now I got the legs down, I can get these hydraulics down. And that saw head's up there, so the hydraulics will function now. The 12 volts hooked up, right? So if I look.
So you're saying once the mill gets to a certain point over here, it connects to the.
Yeah, so if I look right here. So the hydraulics won't work now because it's not touching that contactor's not touching that strip. If you ever get out there and you pull all the levers and nothing works.
I see the strip.
Yeah, check your power, right? Make sure you got good contact there and make sure this, so you got 2 rails. You got this rail and you got a rail down here. There's your ground. Most people forget to look for that. So if you get out there and you pull all your levers and you know that's contact, and check your ground, make sure it's not rusted up or that contactor's broken loose or something's going on with your ground. Okay. So you got hot in the ground. Inside here, you've got your pump motor, and it all works off a solenoid. If you pull one lever at a time and one lever doesn't work but the rest do, and then you pull 2 levers and make that one lever that doesn't work start working, that means you got a loose stylus, little finger. You just need a little Allen wrench and hold it and tighten it back down. And
you're talking about like in here,
yes.
One of these are loose?
Yeah, so down behind this valve assembly, you have these.
Side panel?
Yeah, you take the side panel off. You've got little fingers in there that actuate. There's a little pin that pushes it. It pushes what they call a stylus. And that stylus actuates a micro switch. The micro switch creates the ground for the solenoid to send power out to the hydraulic pump motor. So usually within 5 minutes over the phone, I'll ask you all those questions and we can kind of determine what's wrong with it, right?
Cool.
It's pretty simple. If you get down there and you're like, I don't even have 12 volts going to that strip, there's a fuse right there by that battery, and it's probably that fuse blown, right? So now I'm gonna unfold the hydraulics. So being this is a 40, I like to tell people to remember 1, 3, and 6, just in case I forget where they're at. But basically, you wanna get your turner all the way up. So I'm gonna bring it back, so it's gonna work. So I'm gonna get the side supports and the turner all the way up. Now, I stop when it's all the way, the claw's all the way in like that. I gotta get that claw all the way in because it's important to unhook that chain in a second. So I get that claw all the way in, and then on the last lever, number 6, I wanna make it think it's raising a log up. This is where it's important to have that fender off that side because you could get into your fender. So up on 3, up on 6 is what I did. And there's a reason why I said 1 as well. So 1, 3, and 6. Because in a minute I'm gonna get that clamp out to get ready to catch a log when you load it up there. So if you remember 1, 3, and 6, those are the only levers you're gonna be pulling here.
Okay.
Right, so I gotta get these feet all the way down and that turner all the way up so I can come over here and brace it in between the loader. And I've seen YouTube videos where people they forget to get those down. They just unhook that chain, just let it drop. What you're risking is you could tear up these velocity fuses on the back of the cylinders when you do that. So basically I like to just hold it here and then unhook that safety chain and let go of that arm and just slowly lower it to the ground right there. Right? And now I just pull down on the 3rd lever, down on the 6th lever, and that's gonna get it ready to load a log. Yeah, because you're lifting from the ground basically. That's why the sawmill doesn't tip over when you pick a heavy log up, because you're pushing from the ground. And the beauty behind this cantilevered saw head is, see, it's like this. So square, level's a bad word. So the only leveling you're ever gonna do is on the feet. That's why these mills set up so much faster than all the other brands. Is basically it stays square to itself no matter how it's sitting on the ground. If anything, you'd never want to be out of level this way, you know, so the saw head could fall back. But so you don't have to spend hours trying to get this thing perfectly level. It's not that crucial. All right, so that's how you get it out of travel position. Any questions about that part?
No? I'm sure.
You could always go back and look on your
Yeah,
video.
I'll look back on the video.